You don't think these parents have a right to know?
Secret society. Plus, campus sexual assaults. They're all over the news.
Accusations of campus rape
into sexual assault are increasing.
But how hard is it to prove when the attacker is your boyfriend?
How could he do that? You know, it's crazy. I can't believe it happened.
How she lured him back to get his confession on tape.
I instantly thought of a spy movie.
Is there one thing in it that you heard and you said, got him?
What are your college kids doing tonight? Campus Confidential. Here now, Elizabeth Vargas and David Muir.
Good evening. Tonight we dive right into an explosive debate. It's every parent's fear when they send their child off to college. What really happens in those dorms and at night after classes? Tonight, a rare and revealing look inside college life.
Call it Campus Confidential, and we start with a case of campus love, one of those early relationships. But what happens when you realize that lover has done something horrible to you while you were sleeping? Tonight, the sleeping pills, the assault, and the girlfriend who records the boyfriend to catch him. Here's ABC's Cecilia Vega.
22-year-old Nikki Genthy is used to expressing her emotions through music.
If I'm upset, I can play an angry piece, or if I'm sad, that I can play something more sad. Music has always been there for me.
But tonight, she's coming forward with a story you rarely hear, talking with us about the most painful experience of her life.
What's it feel like for you to be at this campus still?
It's sad because I have so many memories of him and being here.
These majestic mountains surround Ashland, Oregon. Just north of the California border, this small town with a hippie vibe prides itself on beer brewed locally and a Shakespeare festival known around the world. And right in the heart of town sits Southern Oregon University with its 6,000 students and prominent theater and music programs.
SOU has a beautiful campus. It's very much a part of the life of the town.
But recently, this little-known college campus is making a name for itself for the way it's handling a nationwide problem.
Accusations of campus rape
into sexual assault are increasing nationwide.
Coming at a time when nearly 100 universities across the country are under federal investigation for mishandling allegations of sexual assault by students.
An estimated 1 in 5 women has been sexually assaulted during her college years.
A startling statistic that for Nikki is more than just a number, it's her story. As a sophomore music major, she meets vocalist Luke Smith, also in the program.
We met when Luke was a freshman and I was a sophomore here at SOU, and we clicked right away. We had similar personalities, being dorky and loud and silly and maybe a little misunderstood. Our friendship blossomed and we became best friends very quickly.
And then it became romantic? You started dating?
Yes, it did. It was a surprise, I think, for both of us.
Months passed, the relationship progressed and became sexual. But soon, Luke was pressing Nikki to engage in a type of sex that she wasn't comfortable with. And one night last spring, she's sleeping over at Luke's apartment. Tell me what you remember about that night.
We had tried watching a movie. I wasn't able to fall asleep. And so I decided to take a sleeping pill, and he knew I was taking it. And it wasn't working, and it was getting really late, and I had class early in the morning, and so I took a second one, and I fell asleep really quickly. But I remember dozing off, and he was still awake, and he had started giving me a massage, which he did sometimes because it helped me relax. I can remember hearing the rustling of his bed sheets.
She says she remembers drifting in and out of consciousness.
I remember being groggy and waking up once. He was sort of sitting up, and it looked like he had just like moved away really quickly or something, but I was still so groggy and I was so out of it, and I just asked him, what's going on? And he immediately said, you were having a night terror. You can go back to sleep, it's okay.
Her memories are foggy, but Nikki does recall one thing clearly. The feeling of Luke pulling down on the waistband of her sweatpants. What he did next woke her abruptly.
He flew off the bed and he jumped into the corner of his room. I was still so groggy and confused, and I said, did something happen? I'm sorry, I'm really confused. I feel like something happened. And he immediately denied it it was visceral, his response. He said, "No, and how dare you accuse me of something like that?"
Luke had sodomized her, but under the cloud of those sleeping pills, Nikki wasn't sure exactly what had taken place. She even apologized to Luke.
I felt guilty for accusing him of something which he was so convincing in saying he hadn't done that.
In the weeks that followed, their relationship fell apart. After 4 months of dating, the couple broke up. But Nikki still struggled with unexplained and mounting anxiety whenever she was around Luke. Not having yet known what had happened to you, what was that time like for you?
My brain and my body were processing a trauma that I didn't even fully realize had happened yet. So it was not good.
Nikki says she was suffering from depression. Her grades dropped and she couldn't sleep. Hoping to reconcile some of her feelings, Nikki wrote Luke a letter. She says after reading it to him, Luke dropped a bombshell.
He said, "Do you remember that night that you took the sleeping medication?" And he said, "Well, I lied to you that night. And while you were sleeping, I took advantage of you. I was touching you inappropriately while you were sleeping."
The words were searing, but now Nikki finally knew what happened that night. It may have explained her feelings of trauma, but it wasn't helping her cope.
Hi. And so that's why I came here, the Women's Resource Center, and I walked in and verbatim told them what he told me, and they said, "Yes, this is assault, you've been raped." She wrote Carrie's number on it.
And this is where Nikki Genthy's story is different from those countless other survivors of campus sexual assault. She's referred to Angela Fleischer, a confidential advisor, part of an innovative program here called You Have Options.
No person is told about the report until a victim is ready for that information to be known.
The program lets the victim make all the choices. Will she pursue an investigation? Will she help police ID and apprehend her attacker? And most importantly, will she play an active role in proving his guilt?
And she was almost immediately ready to seek out support from the police. Most survivors are not so quick to say, "Yes, I want to seek out the police," as Nikki was.
Detective Carrie Hull met Nikki and Fleischer at the Ashland Police Department, ushering them into a specially designated interview room, decorated to put victims at ease.
Carrie, hi.
What was it like walking into the police department to have this conversation?
So surreal. My hands are sweating. Angela went with me, and I met Detective Carrie Hull. And I was so scared. I thought that she was going to start bombarding me with questions.
So where do you think would be the best place to start?
So I was really afraid, and then we just had a very natural conversation, and it was slow, and I was in control.
But Detective Hull knew this would be a challenging case.
She doesn't even have the memory fully of the assault. You know, there wasn't anybody else in that room except her and Luke.
That was the key. Luke's earlier admission to Nikki would never be enough. So Detective Hull makes a bold suggestion.
I instantly thought of a spy movie. I thought, this is the weirdest thing I've ever been asked to do.
Nikki was asked to lure her ex-boyfriend back to her apartment to get another confession, but this time on tape.
When we come back,
Oh my gosh, don't mess this up.
watch how Nikki sets the trap to get him to admit his crime.
We came over and put the multiple recording devices in the living area that she was the most comfortable with. Come in.
Next. "2020 continues. Once again, Cecilia Vega.
Southern Oregon University is known for its theater program, but no one could have written the drama that was about to unfold here in an off-campus apartment. Nikki Genthy's college boyfriend Luke Smith admitted to raping her in his bed after she had taken sleeping pills.
I even don't believe it sometimes. Like, how could he do that, you know? So, I'm sorry. It's crazy. I can't believe it happened.
The music major went to Angela Fleischer. Fleischer is behind a program that is bucking a trend in how colleges deal with campus sexual assault. Fleischer says it gives the survivors the control, and it appears to be working.
The reports for the campus have doubled, and I imagine will double yet again this year. Students are having the sense that they can trust the system.
A system Nikki says she turned to when she no longer felt safe taking classes with Luke, who was still on campus. Fleischer brought Nikki to Ashland Police Detective Carrie Hull,
Where do you think would be the best place to start?
who knew there was one way that could prove what her ex-boyfriend had done.
Police ask you to secretly record Luke, and you think, what?
They gave me two options. They said we could do this over the phone, we could do it in person. Knowing him as well as I did, I had a feeling he would be suspicious or would be unwilling to talk about those sorts of things over the phone. I knew I had to do it in person.
And sitting down knowing that you are wired to record is hard. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Were you scared something could go wrong?
A little bit. They coached me beforehand. You know, what if this happens? What if this device goes off? What if he asks if you've gone to the cops? We went through all of it.
Detective Hull says getting a confession on tape avoids the all too often he said, she said scenario.
There's no such thing as a he said, she said. A he said, she said case is a poor investigation.
2 weeks later, and with Nikki on board, Detective Hull arrives to set the trap.
We came over and put the multiple recording devices in the living area that she was the most comfortable with.
Nikki invites Luke over to her apartment, telling him she needs closure and wants to talk things out. With the detective sitting in her car outside, Nikki waits for Luke to arrive.
Worried that I would fumble my words, worried that I might just blurt out, "The police are outside." Come in. The first thought I had as he walked through the door was, oh my gosh, don't mess this up.
Only 5 minutes into the conversation, Nikki launches into her script, asking Luke to describe what happened the night of the attack.
We were in bed together, and what happened after that? Because I kind of...
You passed out. I wound up getting out the lotion that we've been using.
The vanilla one?
Yeah.
I remember that.
And I rubbed your butt with it for a while. I remember pulling the sweatpants down.
I remember that.
Once again, Luke lays out the graphic details of how he sodomized Nikki while she slept.
And I remember at first, when you woke up, being able to convince you that it was like you were having more night terrors.
I just felt so sick from it being told exactly what he had done to my body against my will.
But this time, it didn't end there. During this confession, Luke revealed something even more horrific. He'd attempted to rape her a second time.
When I tried again.
Twice?
Yeah.
And that was a huge shock to me because I had only thought that he had raped me once. And when I fell back to sleep, he raped me again, which is brutal.
After you really woke up, and I got freaked out, and I was ashamed, and also
afraid of getting caught.
Yeah, I was afraid.
During that conversation that was secretly recorded, we can hear Luke apologizing to you.
With every fiber I have, I am sorry.
What do you make of that?
It's so cruel in a way. To hear him say, I'm sorry, puts this burden on me to forgive someone for something unforgivable.
You get all of this information, and you see him walk out the door. Is there a sense of, a part of you that says, that's the confession, I got it?
No. I was just sad for this person who has caused me so much pain and has, in that moment, it felt like he had ruined his life in a way.
Police have what they need and bring Luke down to the Ashland Police Department, where Detective Hull is waiting for him.
Do you know the person that would have come forward to me?
I do.
And who would that be?
Nikki Ginty.
He knew what was going on very quickly.
What was his demeanor like?
He never tried to act like he didn't do it, which I will say is very rare. This was not a typical interview with somebody that's accused of one of these crimes.
I sort of lied to her about what was happening to sort of cover my own self, and also because I didn't really want to believe that I have really done anything like that to another person. Sorry.
Police arrested Luke that day.
You're under arrest for several things. Sodomy 1.
Charging him with 3 counts of sexual assault, charges that in the state of Oregon had him facing serious time in prison.
He would have been looking at 25 years. You know, that was additionally something we talked to Nikki about in the beginning, because she felt very strongly that, you know, this was somebody that she still cared about.
Once again, it was Nikki's call.
What did you want to see happen to him?
I met the DA and he asked me what I was thinking, and I looked him right in the eyes and I said, I don't want to ruin his life, even though he's ruined mine in a way. I decided to request that he not be put in prison.
Instead, he pleaded guilty to 1 charge of sexual abuse, got 3 years probation, and had to register as a sex offender. He was also expelled from Southern Oregon University.
Was that justice for you?
To be empowered, yes. What's most important is that I got to do what I felt at the time was the best thing in my heart of hearts for myself and also for him.
But there was an all too familiar backlash. After Luke's arrest and expulsion, Nikki says some members of the music program, her friends and her classmates, wanted nothing to do with her.
It was really disheartening and frustrating because Luke had made a confession. However, no one wanted to admit that it happened. No one wants to admit rape happens, especially when it's someone that you have known and trusted for years and years.
We reached out to Luke through his probation officer, but he did not respond. For Nikki, this chapter is now closed. She's moving forward and getting back to what brought her to this university in the first place.
What do you think music has given you through all of this experience?
Music has given me my life back because I have been through so much pain. And Luke has taken so much away from me, and music has given it back.
Music helping her. And if you've been the victim of sexual assault, you can go to our webpage. We have places you can turn to. And we want to know tonight, what do you think of Nikki's choice not to have Luke sent to prison? Let us know. Use the hashtag ABC2020.
And join the conversation on our Facebook page as well. And when we return, I go back to college to show you how the police are getting kids on campus to go undercover. It helps catch the criminals, but doesn't put your child's life at risk.
When we come back, a hockey star turned campus snitch.
There was a whole double life that your son was leading.
But when he turns up dead, why does his mother hold the college accountable?
Shouldn't you know more about what's going on in your own campus?
Next.
And now one mother discovering her son away at school was living a double life. He had a secret, and the college did as well. An undercover police program that is on many campuses right now, maybe even your own children's. But this mother claims this program helped destroy her son. It's Parents' Weekend at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Parents reunited with their kids on the quad, tailgating and tours. Francesca, a realtor and single mom, is gearing up, cooking her only son's favorite meal and eager for their visit.
What were these weekends like?
A lot of fun, a lot of bonding, a lot of things going on campus.
Logan, we're not using his real name, is a junior and the recipient of the prestigious Chancellor's Scholarship at his dream school, a sprawling mini metropolis of 28,000 students nestled in the hills of New England.
It was a really nice weekend normally.
And by all accounts, this weekend was poised to be on par with those others. Logan even phones his mother the night before her visit to make sure she's keeping a tradition alive.
He had a request.
It was close to 11:30. It was really late. And he said, Mom, is there any way you can make me lasagna? And he told me he couldn't wait to see us.
And he sounded absolutely normal.
Yes.
The next morning, Logan's dad, Francesca's ex-husband, is also on his way to Amherst. Francesca spends the morning cooking in the kitchen before starting on the 4-hour drive.
So I was about a half hour into the drive, and his dad was supposed to meet him after his last class and take him to lunch. And he called me and he said he wasn't where he was supposed to meet him. And I said, well, did you go over to his job? He went there He said nobody's seen him, and I told him I just had an awful feeling, and I told him to knock the door down. Something's got to be wrong.
Logan's father begs a maintenance worker to open Logan's off-campus apartment. Francesca is still driving alone in her car 200 miles and 2 states away when Logan's dad delivers Francesca unimaginable news.
He said, he's not breathing. I said, call an ambulance. And he went from saying he's not breathing to he's blue. He's dead.
What did you think had happened to your son?
I didn't know.
He's a fit, young man. You had just spoken to him. What did you dream had happened to him?
I had no idea. No clue. Did somebody come in? Was there an altercation or something? I was sure I was not hearing this right, and was hoping it was a nightmare. All I remember is screaming, punching the dashboard, and just screaming. I was not stopping. All I kept saying is, I have to hug him and let him know that everything's gonna be okay. That's all I kept saying.
She is trapped in her car on a seemingly endless drive. The same car that had taken Logan to countless sporting events, play dates, and pool parties. Were there any clues in his past that would have led to this moment? He had been a high school honor student and a hockey star.
Were you one of those proud moms who's always in the stand?
Hockey mom, all the way. Yeah, whenever he scored, scream out, that's my boy, that's my boy.
His future so bright at his high school graduation, he's the only boy wearing shades.
There's my kid with the sunglasses. He's gotta be cool.
He was the type that he could go into a test for calculus, not study the night before, and come out with an A+.
John Newworth knew Logan since elementary school.
He was beyond personable. He was somebody that you're naturally just drawn to.
He was the life of the party. He really was.
But Francesca says she wasn't naive. She knew her former Boy Scout son occasionally engaged in typical teenage misbehavior, drinking beers, even smoking pot now and then.
Was Logan much into partying in high school?
I'm not sitting there behind rose-colored glasses. I know he's drinking. But that's what teenagers do. Not all of them, but...
And you never saw any signs of any problem that would make you more concerned?
No.
Just like so many parents, Francesca sent her only child off to college with trepidation, but she could have no idea what lay in store.
Were you nervous?
You go from a parent who's completely involved to nothing, because college, they will tell you nothing. You're paying for the college, but you're not part of it. I told him to choose wisely, and I trusted him wholeheartedly.
One test of that trust came on winter break freshman year. Police arrest Logan at a traffic stop after finding a pen with cocaine residue in the trunk of his car.
So did you ask him, are you doing cocaine?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He said he tried it.
And is that when the mom drug lecture came out?
Oh, more than just a lecture.
Francesca thinks problem solved. But what she doesn't know is Logan's drug use is escalating. He's gone from doing drugs to dealing them. She has no idea. He's writing notes like this, just 3 months before his untimely death.
He made a list of what he's grateful for. School, being smart, my good looks, my knowledge. Sounds like he was somebody who really knew how lucky he was in life.
He did. He had it all.
So that's why, back on that highway through hell, Francesca is left dumbfounded by her son's death, replaying that final conversation in her head, the one where Logan is asking for lasagna. Little did she know that while they're planning that visit, Logan was also expecting a visit from someone else, and it would be the last person Logan would ever see.
He was waiting at the exact same time I was talking to him on the phone.
Next, dirty little secrets of campus life that no parent would ever expect.
There was a whole double life that your son was leading.
And it would take a fellow student to uncover them, all buried in hidden text messages in Logan's phone, revealing how Logan gets drawn into a dangerous underworld. what Logan would do that would make him an outcast on campus, and what would cost him his life.
It was literally a voice from the grave. Were you shocked by anything that you read in there?
I was.
Stay with us.
We return to 2020's Campus Confidential. Once again, Elizabeth Vargas.
It is Parents' Weekend. Strolls on the quad, fall foliage on the bucolic campus, an idyllic scene. But nearby, in off-campus housing, a dark scene is unfolding. College junior Logan is discovered dead in his apartment. The campus of UMass Amherst is reeling. Vice Chancellor for University Relations John Kennedy remembers the day.
To have a death happen, what was that like?
It's incredibly shocking. It's heartbreaking. Logan himself was incredibly well liked. He was a good student. It's stunning when something like this happens.
The news spreads like wildfire and piques the interest of fellow students like Eric Bosco, an earnest 21-year-old journalism major who dreams of a career at a big city newspaper.
There was an email sent out to the campus community telling us that a student had died in his off-campus apartment, but there was no information about how exactly he had died. So I had been asking around and began to hear rumors.
This story published.
Eric is taking a class in investigative journalism with Professor Steve Fox.
The goal of the investigative class.
Eric and another classmate make the curious case of Logan's death their class project.
So you started sniffing around. How long did it take you to start to get some information?
I went down to UMass Police and requested all documents relevant to his name.
Did they just hand them over?
After a few days, they made the copies and they turned everything over, yeah.
They are public documents, but it's only this enterprising young reporter who asks to see them. Easy to obtain, impossible to forget.
Were you shocked by anything that you read in there?
I was.
In those police records, secrets of a turning point in Logan's life. Details of a night 10 months before his death. At the time, Logan is a sophomore living in a dorm. He is dealing drugs, and campus police have noticed. So one cold winter's night, Logan unwittingly sells an undercover officer 2 tabs of LSD for $20. The jig is up.
So an undercover police officer comes in here at night, buys some LSD.
Yep.
And they search his room at that point.
Correct.
And what do they find?
They find $700 in cash, an assortment of drugs, and a hypodermic needle.
At UMass Amherst, a discovery like this one would typically lead to arrest, suspension, and, according to school policy, a phone call to Logan's parents. But on this night for Logan, campus police choose to do something different. Very different.
And they made him an offer. What was the offer?
The offer was they'll drop all charges and they won't charge him with distributing LSD and for the possession of drugs in his room if he wears a wire and makes a controlled buy from a higher level dealer on campus.
At another dormitory?
Correct.
To Logan, it's not much of a decision. Not only does he face charges, he faces having to pay back $40,000 in scholarship money. He takes the deal. Police identify him as confidential informant number 8. That same night, police direct him to contact his former roommate, a friend called Sleepy Dan, and arrange to buy $70 worth of LSD.
This is where Logan then comes.
Yes.
After texting Sleepy Dan.
Yes.
And he's wearing a wire.
When he gets up into the room, he's wearing a wire. He makes the buy, he leaves the room, and detectives swoop in and make the arrest.
What time frame are we talking about? Like how quickly after Logan goes in and makes the buy from Sleepy Dan in this dormitory?
A matter of minutes.
In a matter of minutes, the police are in there right away.
Right.
That must have caused a lot of commotion. It's a crowded dormitory filled with students. Not so confidential.
I guess not.
No secret on campus, but it's very secret to Logan's mom, Francesca. She's kept entirely in the dark about just how dark her son's college experience has become.
You were the one who told Logan's mom that Logan had worked as a confidential informant?
Correct.
How hard was that to do?
That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. She began to cry, and yeah, it's just a powerful, tragic moment.
I'm not sure J-School, journalism school, actually prepares you for tasks like that.
I'm not sure anything can prepare you for that.
I miss him. Just really miss him.
Francesca is now determined to help Eric. She sends him Logan's cracked iPhone.
What did you find?
We found a lot. This kid hadn't deleted any text messages for a year and a half or 2 years that he had the phone. He was able to essentially speak from the grave.
Logan's texts make it clear that taking that deal has taken a toll. The life of the party has become a campus pariah. A guilt-ridden Logan writes a friend, "Kinda hard to live with myself. That was honestly the worst day of my life."
He was paying a big price as that rumor got around campus about his role in the arrest of a fellow drug dealer.
Right.
A friend texts, "You're just a really, really selfish bleep." Logan writes, "Don't hate me, hate the system for making me an offer I couldn't refuse." To another friend, "I'm thinking transfer out of UMass. Everyone hates me now." Logan confides in his childhood friend, John Neuwirth.
He wasn't happy about what he did. He was ashamed. He felt bad. I mean, as anybody would. He gets labeled as a snitch, labeled as a rat. It's basically ostracizing him from the community.
1 month after Logan is made confidential informant number 8, the police are in touch with him again.
This is the police department. I got some money I need to return to you. Just give me a call when you get a chance.
They are returning that $700 they took from his dorm room. The news seems to brighten Logan's dark mood. In a text, Logan writes, "Cops are giving me my bleeping money back, and we're in business."
And that he then went and used that money to buy drugs.
Right.
Money that, had he been arrested and had you been called, he would never have been able to use to purchase drugs.
No, he wouldn't have been.
Instead, Logan stays at UMass, and soon comes the most dire of all of his text messages. "I'm a heroin addict," he confesses to a friend. "I'm going to rehab when school's out." But he keeps all of this a secret from his mother. At the same time he's asking his mother for lasagna, the night before Parents' Weekend, 10 months after he went undercover, he sends a message to a dealer, desperate for a fix. "My veins are crying. Is the traffic going to be bad?" The dealer responds, "You will very soon be in the loving, comforting arms of Miss H." By the next morning, Logan, just 20 years old, is dead.
Where was Logan found?
In the bathroom.
On the floor?
Yes. Nearby, there was a spoon and a needle.
It is a fate Francesca is certain could have been avoided if only she had been given a chance.
We should have been called under the policies and procedures of the university. I would have been up there in the middle of the night, bringing him home and finding him help. Just knowing there was a syringe, I would have just automatically made an assumption it was heroin.
So do you think that Logan died because he was a confidential informant?
Yes.
Not
Yes.
because he was a drug addict?
No. No.
Why? It's 10 months that passed.
If the policies and procedures were adhered to, I would have been alerted to this. He would have gotten help. He would be alive.
Next, a hockey mom with a power play, on a mission, pitting herself against a prestigious university.
You don't think these parents have a right to know that their child is being used as a confidential informant while on a college campus?
And who was Logan's dealer, who dealt him the lethal dose of heroin? The answer is the last thing UMass wants to hear tonight. Stay with us.
2020 continues with Campus Confidential. Here again, Elizabeth Vargas.
The headline, hooked, terrified, trapped. 21-year-old journalism student Eric Bosco has scored a major scoop. His school project is on the front page of the Boston Globe, blowing the lid off a secret world that few students or their parents know exists.
Following the overdose death of a reported student informant.
A UMass student reportedly used by the school as a drug informant.
It's one hell of a first story for you.
That's what I've been hearing, yeah.
The article leads prosecutors to reopen the investigation into the death of fellow student Logan, whose own mother is shocked by what Eric's reporting has revealed. Agonizing text messages about his descent into drug addiction and his despair about being labeled a snitch and ostracized by his friends.
The stuff that I read, the things I didn't know, are all in print now for me to see for the first time.
And Francesca wasn't the only one surprised. While UMass Amherst has employed a confidential informant program for more than a decade, Vice Chancellor of University Relations John Kennedy told us the administration had no idea that Logan had been used in such a way.
When did you learn that Logan had been a confidential informant?
We learned through the reporting process.
So you didn't know either until a couple students who are in your own journalism school, says a lot about your journalism school, started digging around.
Absolutely.
But shouldn't you know more about what's going on in your own campus and campus police department?
This is a campus of 28,000 students. Despite anyone's best intentions, there are going to be things that we're just not going to know until they come to light like this.
CIs are a surprisingly common and unregulated practice, and UMass Amherst is not alone in using student CIs. But what about that UMass policy that parents are supposed to be notified if a student has a drug or alcohol violation?
Why weren't Logan's parents notified?
The confidentiality of the actual informant was critical to ensuring the safety of the student.
You don't think these parents have a right to know that their child is being used as a confidential informant while on a college campus?
You make a very good point, Elizabeth, and that's why when news of this tragedy came to light, we immediately suspended the policy.
A lot of people were frankly shocked to hear that this kind of practice went on. It would seem that these kinds of students would be very vulnerable to threats or manipulation.
You make some very good points, and those points are brought up in the campus review. They make some of the same points that you're making.
That these students are vulnerable to manipulation and threat.
Absolutely.
The most high-profile example of that manipulation, the case of Rachel Hoffman, one so shocking it would change the law. 2020 covered her story in 2008.
She could be anyone's daughter.
Rachel was a recent graduate of Florida State University when police busted her for selling small amounts of marijuana. Just like Logan, they made her an offer.
Your 23-year-old daughter was told, here's your choice, 5 years in prison or be a confidential
Correct.
informant. I don't know who would pick 5 years in prison.
Sure enough, Rachel agrees to be a CI. Police then send her to meet two big-time drug dealers to buy cocaine, ecstasy, and believe it or not, a handgun, all while wearing a hidden microphone. It was a major sting.
Rachel had never, ever had any training for this.
As Rachel drove down this deserted road, the targets of the sting discovered her wire. They then shoot and kill her with the very gun she was supposed to buy.
It was a tragedy of errors.
Attorney Lance Block worked with the Hoffmans to pass a Florida state law that puts restrictions on the use of CIs. It's called Rachel's Law. And now, because of Logan's case, they filed a bill to expand the law to include college campuses.
What happened to Rachel and Logan was wrong. It's morally wrong, and the system needs to change.
In fact, during our interview, Vice Chancellor John Kennedy told us the system is changing permanently at UMass Amherst.
We have decided to do away with the use of student confidential informants on this campus.
Do you think Logan would be alive today if he hadn't been used as a confidential informant?
Look, I can't get into the specifics of this case. The district attorney has instructed us not to talk about the specifics of this case because the investigation is an ongoing and pending investigation.
But you're changing university policy as a result of this. You must think there's a link between the use of Logan as a CI, a confidential informant, and his death 10 months later.
No, what I would tell you is that the incident that you described, this tragic incident, caused us to re-examine the confidential informant policy on campus.
As the college rewrites campus policy now, a mother is left to wonder, what was it all for? A college junior forced to make an agonizing choice lost his life. The charges against Sleepy Dan, Logan's former roommate who he helped the police bust, have since been dismissed. And the alleged heroin dealer who sold Logan that lethal dose, he remains at large. Francesca would use her dead son's phone one last time to send a message to that anonymous dealer.
You texted that boy, didn't you? That young man.
Yes.
What did you say?
You killed my son, and I hope you rot in hell.
And just this week, 2020 has learned that phone number belonged to a paid teacher's assistant at UMass, according to a university directory. He is no longer at the school, and the open investigation is now in the hands of the local district attorney.
The dealer, what has happened to him?
Nothing happened to him, as far as I know. Nothing.
He hasn't been arrested?
No.
Why wouldn't they go after a dealer who gave another student a deadly dose of heroin?
Maybe they made him a confidential informant.
Tune in tomorrow night for a special edition of 2020 at 10 p.m. Eastern, a high school love triangle that leads to murder. I'm Elizabeth Vargas.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020, we hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow night.